The first cry cut through the cabin like broken glass. It wasn't the
Come on now.
normal fussy whimper passengers expected. This was sharp, desperate, the kind of sound that made people shift uncomfortably, pretend to sleep, or glare over seatbacks with quiet irritation. But no one said a word. Because the man holding the baby sat in first class, alone, rigid, dressed in an immaculate black suit that looked more like armor than fashion. His presence bent the air around him. Flight attendants hesitated near him. Passengers avoided his gaze. Domina. Most people on the plane didn't know his name, but they felt it. Power like his didn't need introductions. The infant screamed harder, tiny fists beating weakly against Domina's chest. His jaw tightened, dark eyes flashing with something dangerous, frustration, panic, maybe fear. He tried the bottle again. The baby rejected it, crying until his face turned red. Domina exhaled slowly, forcing control back into his body. He had negotiated with killers, broken rivals, ordered men into silence forever. But this was destroying him. 3 rows back, Sarah stiffened. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. Her chest ached painfully, milk threatening to soak through the nursing pads she still wore out of habit, 6 months after her daughter had died in her sleep. She closed her eyes, swallowing the grief that rose like a tide. Then she heard it again. That cry. Sarah stood before she could talk herself out of it. "I'm a nurse," she said softly to the flight attendant. "Pediatric." The attendant hesitated, then glanced toward first class, toward Domina. He looked up. Their eyes met, and something shifted. Up close he was devastating. Sharp features, cold authority. A man built to rule, but the baby in his arms was trembling, exhausted, desperate. "He's hungry," Sarah said gently, "not fussy hungry." "I've tried the bottle," Domina replied. His voice was calm but cracked just enough to reveal the truth underneath. "He won't take it." "Was he breastfed?" The question landed like a blow. "My wife died giving birth," Domina said quietly, 8 weeks ago." Silence wrapped around them. Sarah felt her heart fracture open. "I'm still producing," she heard herself say. "If you'll allow it, I can help." For the first time since the plane took off, Domina looked uncertain. "You're offering to feed my son?" "Yes." The crying continued, desperate now. Domina stood abruptly. "The restroom, it's private." As Sarah followed him, heart pounding, she had no idea she was stepping into a world of old laws, sacred bonds, and blood-soaked power. She only knew one thing. A child was hungry. And everything was about to change. The infant's screams pierced through first class like shattered glass. Every passenger within earshot winced, shifted uncomfortably, or shot irritated glances toward the source. But none dared complain when they saw the man holding the child. Dominic Santoro sat rigid in his seat, jaw clenched tight enough to crack diamonds. The custom-tailored black suit that normally made him look like a dark angel now seemed to constrict like a prison. His cold, calculating eyes held something foreign. Panic. The baby continued to wail, tiny fists flailing against Dominic's chest. 2 months old and already bearing the weight of a crown he didn't ask for. 2 months since Isabella had taken her last breath, bringing this child into the world. "Sir," one bodyguard leaned in carefully, "we could land early." "No," Dominic's voice was silk wrapped in steel. "We stay on schedule." 3 rows ahead, Sarah Mitchell heard the desperate cries and felt her body respond instinctively. Her breasts ached with sympathetic letdown, milk threatening to soak through nursing pads. She still wore despite the fact that Emma had been gone 6 months. She closed her eyes, forcing down the wave of grief. 6 months since she'd held her own daughter. 6 months since the tiny heart had simply stopped beating in the night. The crying intensified. Sarah knew that sound, the desperate, hungry wail of an infant who needed something primal, something only a mother could provide. "Miss, are you all right?" The flight attendant paused beside her. Sarah looked up, then back toward the crying. "That baby, I'm a nurse, maybe I can help." When she reached them, she saw him clearly. Black hair swept back from a face carved from marble by an angry god. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, eyes so dark they absorbed light. He wore power like a second skin. But the baby in his arms looked so small, so helpless. "Sir, this passenger is a nurse." "Pediatric," Sarah heard herself say, I know that cry, he's hungry. I've tried the bottle. Frustration cracked through Dominic's controlled exterior. Sarah's eyes moved from man to baby, something in her chest cracked open. Some Barbies won't take artificial nipples. Was he breastfed initially? Pain flashed across Dominic's face. She died, 8 weeks ago, giving birth to him. Sarah's eyes burned. Then he's probably refusing the bottle because he's looking for something familiar. Their eyes locked. She saw the exact moment he understood what she was implying. Are you offering what I think you're offering? Sarah swallowed hard. This was insane, but the baby was suffering, and her body was producing milk with nowhere to go. I'm still producing. I lost my daughter 6 months ago. If you'd allow me, I could try. The silence was deafening. Dominic stared at this stranger who just offered the most intimate gift one human could give another. The restroom, it's more private. Sarah followed him, heart hammering. In the small lavatory, she took the infant carefully. What's his name? Marco. She positioned Marco at her breast. For a moment nothing happened, then his instincts kicked in and he latched on. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as Marco nursed. He wasn't Emma, but he was a child who needed comfort. When she emerged 15 minutes later, Marco slept peacefully in her arms. Dominic looked at his son, truly peaceful for the first time since Isabella's death, and felt something shift in his chest. Your name, he demanded, though his tone had lost its edge. Sarah Mitchell. Dominic Santoro, I owe you a debt. You don't owe me anything. In my world, everything comes with a price. His eyes fixed on her with intensity that made her breath catch. He pulled out a business card. Call me when we land. I want to properly thank you. Sarah took the card, fingers brushing his. The contact sent electricity up her arm. She returned to her seat in a daze, not noticing Dominic's calculating look as she walked away. In his world, what had just happened wasn't simple. In the old ways his grandfather had taught him, a woman who nursed a Don's child became bound to that family. Sarah Mitchell had just fed his son, and in doing so she'd fulfilled a role that made her something sacred. Made her his. The black SUV that picked Sarah up 2 days later was not what she'd expected. The driver was a mountain of a man with cold eyes and an earpiece. The windows were tinted so dark she couldn't see out, and the locks engaged with an ominous click. Where are we going? The Don's estate, miss. The Don, not Dominic. Sarah's stomach twisted as pieces clicked into place. The SUV wound through Newark into the suburbs, each mile taking them farther from public spaces. When they turned through iron gates guarded by armed men, Sarah's heart climbed into her throat. The mansion was massive, sprawling like something from The Godfather. Teresa, a severe woman in her 60s, met her at the door. Mr. Santoro is waiting in the nursery. Sarah heard Marco's cries before she saw them. Teresa opened the door to reveal a nursery decorated in soft blues and silvers. Dominic stood by the window, Marco wailing in his arms. He'd rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms corded with muscle and extensive tattoos, deliberate symbolic ink that told stories in the criminal underworld. Sarah, his voice was rough with relief. Thank God, he's been asking for you. Dominic, what is this? Who are you really? Something flickered in his eyes. He gestured to Teresa, who slipped out silently. I think you already know. You're with the Mafia. I am the Mafia. I'm head of the Santoro family. He paused, some legitimate, some less legitimate. Sarah backed toward the door. I need to leave. Marco needs you. Look at him, Sarah. She did. The baby was thinner than on the plane, his cries weak, dark circles shadowing tiny eyes. What happened? He won't eat, not the bottle, not anything. The pediatrician wants to hospitalize him, put in a feeding tube. His voice cracked. I can't do that to him. Sarah reached for Marco. The moment the baby was in her arms, his cries diminished to whimpers. He turned his face against her chest, rooting instinctively. I know this isn't fair, Dominic said. I know I have no right to ask, but Sarah, I haven't seen my son peaceful since the day he was born. Sarah looked from baby to man. This terrifying, powerful, dangerous man who was also a desperate father. This is insane. You're a criminal. Yes. I should run. Probably. But he needs to eat. She looked down at Marco. Can you give us privacy? Dominic nodded and moved toward the door. Wait, on the plane you said I'd stepped into your world. What did you mean? For a long moment he didn't answer, then he sighed, accent thickening. My grandfather was born in Sicily. He brought the old ways when he came to America. One tradition is about who feeds a don's child. When a woman nurses a child that isn't hers, especially the child of a don, she becomes bound to that family. In the oldest traditions, she becomes the child's mother. You can't be serious. In my world, what you did means something. It means you're under my protection now. It means other families will see you as connected to us, and it means I can't let you walk away. You don't own me. It's not about ownership. The moment word gets out that you nursed my son, and it will, you'll become a target, you'll need protection, my protection. Then I won't do it again. Teresa already knows, my driver knows. By tomorrow, every family from here to Chicago will know. Marco let out a desperate cry. Sarah felt her body respond, milk letting down. 1 week, she heard herself say. I'll stay 1 week, help get him established on a bottle, but then I'm gone. Done, I'll have my lawyer draw up a contract within the hour. Sarah nodded and turned to the rocking chair. Dominic left, posting someone outside. As Marco latched on, nursing desperately, Sarah closed her eyes. This was wrong on so many levels, but God, it felt right to have a baby in her arms again. Outside, Dominic made a call. Luca, I need you here now, the baby has a wet nurse. He could hear Luca's shock through the phone. Everyone would know what that meant. 1 week, she'd said. Dominic stared at the closed door and made a decision. He'd give her the week, and in that time he'd show her that despite the darkness, he could be what she and Marco needed. Because 1 week wasn't going to be enough. 4 days into Sarah's week, the mansion had become a strange kind of home. She'd been given a suite adjacent to the nursery, decorated in soft creams and golds. Everything screamed luxury and captivity. Sarah spent most of her time with Marco, feeding him every 3 hours, watching him regain the healthy flush Barbies should have. Dominic was there for almost every feeding, sitting in the corner like a silent guardian. He's gaining weight, Sarah said on the 4th evening, Marco sleeping peacefully after his feeding. Another few days and he'll be strong enough to try bottles. Good, but Dominic's tone didn't sound pleased. He looked tense, wound tight. What's wrong? We need to talk, word got out. 3 families have already reached out making inquiries. Inquiries? Polite ways of asking if I've claimed you formally. If you're under my protection as just an employee or as something more. And what did you tell them? That you're mine, that anyone who touches you answers to me. Sarah should have been angry, but something about the fierce protectiveness in his voice made her feel safe. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected, there's a difference. He moved closer. The Morty family has made noises about wanting to meet the woman nursing the Santoro heir. Why? Because you're valuable. In the old ways, the woman who nurses a don's child holds almost as much power as the don himself. If something happened to me, you and Marco would be logical successors. That makes you dangerous to my rivals and valuable to my allies. This is insane. This is my world, I'm sorry you got pulled into it. But Sarah, he paused. I'm not sorry you're here. These past 4 days, watching you with my son, seeing him peaceful because of you, you gave us both something I thought was lost forever. Dominic. Let me finish, you are family. Maybe not legally, but in the ways that matter to me, to my son, you're already ours. Sarah knew she should pull away, should remind him about their agreement. Should definitely not be leaning into his touch as his hand cupped her cheek. This can't happen, she whispered, swaying closer despite her words. Why not? His thumb stroked her cheekbone. Because you're dangerous, because I've already lost, her voice broke. I can't lose anyone else. I know about Emma. I had you investigated. I know about your daughter, about the counseling, about the life you're trying to rebuild. Sarah should have been furious, but instead she felt relieved that he knew. Then you understand why this can't be more than temporary. I know loss. I watched Isabella die bringing our son into the world, but don't write us off because you're scared. These past few days, I've watched you be brave enough to walk into a world you didn't understand. Don't tell me you're too scared to try this. Try what? And then he was kissing her, gentle at first, asking permission. Sarah froze for half a heartbeat, every rational thought screaming this was wrong. But then his hand slid into her hair, and she melted into the kiss like coming home. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. Stay, not for a week, stay. I can't. You can, Marco needs you, I need you. And unless I'm completely misreading things, you need us too. I'm scared. So am I, but I'm more scared of letting you walk away. Before Sarah could respond, Marco stirred. She automatically began rocking him. Dominic watched them, and the expression on his face stole her breath, possessive and protective and full of longing. Together they put Marco in his crib. When Dominic straightened, Sarah was right there, the air between them charged again. I should go to my room, she said, but didn't move. You should, he agreed, also not moving. But when his hand found the small of her back, pulling her closer, Sarah didn't resist. When he kissed her again, deeper with hunger, she kissed him back with equal fervor. They stumbled away from the crib until Sarah's back hit the wall. Tell me to stop, he murmured against her lips. Sarah looked into his eyes, those dangerous eyes that somehow made her feel safer than she had in months. No. When they finally broke apart, both panting, he framed her face. 3 more days. If you still want to leave, I won't stop you, but I'm going to spend those 3 days convincing you to stay. And if I still want to leave? Pain flickered across his features. Then I'll let you go, I'll make sure you're protected, but I'll let you go. Sarah searched his face for lies. All she saw was honesty and vulnerability. Okay, 3 days. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. 3 days. He kissed her once more before forcing himself to step back. Get some rest, Marco will be hungry soon. Sarah slipped out, legs shaky. She'd kissed him. She'd agreed to let him convince her to stay. She was falling for a man who probably had blood on his hands. But when she was in his arms, none of that seemed to matter. Down the hall, Dominic watched his son sleep. For the first time since Isabella's death, he felt hope. 3 days to make Sarah understand this wasn't just about Marco needing a mother or ancient traditions. It was about the fact that when he looked at her, he saw his future. He saw his queen. Sarah woke to chaos. The explosion shattered the pre-dawn silence, rattling windows throughout the mansion. She bolted upright, heart hammering. Marco. She ran barefoot into the nursery, finding Dominic already there. His son clutched protectively against his chest. What's happening? They made their move. Dominic's face was carved from stone, all vulnerability replaced by the cold dawn. The Mortys just bombed my warehouse on the docks. Before Sarah could respond, Luca burst through the door, blood streaking his temple. Boss, it's a distraction. They hit 3 locations simultaneously. They left a message. He glanced at Sarah. They want the woman. If you don't hand over the wet nurse by midnight, they'll level every property you own. The room spun. This was her fault. Give me to them, Sarah said, if it stops the war. No, Dominic's voice was absolute. He handed Marco to Teresa. Take him to the safe room, now. Then he was in front of Sarah, hands gripping her shoulders. Listen to me carefully. You are under my protection. That means I would burn this city to the ground before I let anyone take you. Understand? She saw the monster everyone feared. His eyes had gone black and cold, his body radiating lethal intent, but his hands remained gentle. They'll kill you. They'll try. A dangerous smile curved his lips. Luca will take you to the safe room with Marco. Stay there until I come for you. Don't open the door for anyone else. Dominic. I'll come back, I promise you, Sarah Mitchell, I will come back. We have 3 days left, remember. I'm not done convincing you to stay. Then he was gone, barking orders. Sarah stood frozen until Luca touched her arm. Miss Mitchell, we need to move. The safe room was deep in the basement, accessed through a hidden door in the wine cellar. It was surprisingly comfortable, a full apartment with enough supplies to last weeks. Teresa was already there with Marco, the baby miraculously still sleeping. How long will we be here? Teresa's face was grim. However long it takes, the Don won't rest until every threat is eliminated. Hours crawled by. Sarah fed Marco when he woke, her body going through familiar motions while her mind screamed with worry. What was happening up there? Was Dominic safe? You love him, Teresa said quietly, not a question. I barely know him. That doesn't answer my question. Sarah stopped packing, shoulders slumping. How can I love someone whose world is so violent? My husband worked for the Don's father. 30 years in this life. It took him in the end, a rival's bullet. But those 30 years were full of love and loyalty. Yes, there was darkness, but there was light too. Does the light make up for the darkness? That's for you to decide. But I've worked for the Santoro family for 40 years. I've seen 3 Dons and I've never seen one look at a woman the way Dominic looks at you. Like you're his salvation. Before Sarah could respond, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then the backup generator kicked in. Teresa's face had gone pale. It means someone cut the main power, it means they're here. Gunfire erupted from above, muffled but unmistakable. Sarah ran to Marco's crib, scooping him up. The baby woke with a startled cry. Then the lights went out completely. In the darkness, Sarah heard Teresa move closer, heard the distinctive sound of a gun being cocked. "Stay behind me." More gunfire, shouting, the sounds of combat filtering down through reinforced walls. Sarah clutched Marco tighter, tears streaming as she whispered reassurances to the crying infant. The door to the safe room shook with impact, once, twice. "They can't get through," Teresa assured her, though Sarah heard uncertainty. "It's reinforced steel." An explosion rocked the room, smaller than the warehouse blast but devastating. Sarah's ears rang as smoke poured through a crack in the door. "Run," Teresa shoved Sarah toward the back. "There's an emergency exit behind the bookshelf. Take Marco and run." "What about you?" "I'll slow them down." Teresa raised her gun. "Go, Miss Mitchell, the Don is counting on you to keep his son safe." Sarah ran, Marco screaming in her arms, fumbling for the hidden latch. The bookshelf swung open, revealing a narrow tunnel lit by battery-powered emergency lights. Behind her, she heard the safe room door give way. Heard Teresa's gun fire once, twice, 3 times. Heard a man shout in Italian. Then she was in the tunnel, running blindly through darkness with Marco clutched to her chest, not knowing if she was running toward safety or into the arms of the enemy. Not knowing if Dominic was alive or dead. The tunnel seemed endless. Finally, Sarah saw light ahead. She burst out into the woods behind the estate. In the distance, flames rose from the mansion. Then she heard it, a car engine getting closer. Sarah turned to run deeper into the woods, but it was too late. The SUV screeched to a stop. Men poured out. One stepped forward, older with cold eyes and a predatory smile. The famous wet nurse, finally take her. Sarah fought, screaming, but it was useless. They were professionals. The last thing she saw before they forced a cloth over her mouth was the mansion burning in the distance, smoke rising like a funeral pyre. Then darkness claimed her. Sarah woke in a room that reeked of old money and older sins. Her head pounded, but her first thought was Marco. She bolted upright to find the baby sleeping peacefully in an antique bassinet beside the bed. Relief flooded through her, they hadn't hurt him. Awake finally. The voice came from the shadows. The older man from the woods stepped into light. "I am Vittorio Morti, and you, my dear, are worth your weight in gold." "Where are we?" "My estate about 50 miles from the Santoro mansion, or what's left of it." His smile was cruel. "Don't worry, your beloved Don is alive, for now. I made sure word reached him about where to find you." "You want him to come?" Understanding dawned with horror. "Of course, Dominic Santoro destroyed my family 10 years ago, killed my sons, took my territory, left me with nothing but scraps." He gestured to Marco. "And now he cares about something. Finally, after a decade of being untouchable, he has a weakness, 2 weaknesses, actually." He moved closer. "You and his precious heir, tell me, does he love you?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play stupid." Victorio's hand shot out, gripping her chin painfully. "I've seen the reports, the way he looks at you, the way he's protected you. Dominic Santoro hasn't cared about anything since his wife died, but he cares about you, and that is going to destroy him." He released her, smoothing his suit. "He'll come for you tonight, I've made sure of it. And when he does, when he walks through those doors willing to trade everything for your safety, I'll take it all. His empire, his power, his life, everything." "He'll kill you." "Perhaps, but first he'll have to watch me hurt what he loves, and that will be worth dying for." The hours that followed were torture. Sarah stayed close to Marco, feeding him when he cried, changing him with supplies Victorio's people had provided. They wanted the baby healthy, wanted him as leverage. As dusk fell, Vittorio returned. "He's here, earlier than expected, actually. Your Don must be quite motivated." He hauled Sarah to her feet. Come, you'll want to see this. He dragged her to a study and positioned her near the window where she could see the grounds below. Her heart stopped. Dominic stood alone in the center of the courtyard, illuminated by floodlights. No bodyguards, no visible weapons, hands raised in surrender. But even from this distance, Sarah could see the coiled violence in his stance, the barely leashed fury. Morty, his voice carried clearly, I'm here, let them go. Victorio laughed, pushing Sarah closer to the window so Dominic could see her. The moment their eyes met across the distance, Sarah saw Dominic's mask crack. Raw emotion flooded his face, relief, fear, love. Your empire for the woman and child, Victorio called down. Sign over everything. Territory, businesses, operations. Make me Don of the Santoro family and I'll let them live. Done, Dominic didn't hesitate. I'll sign whatever you want, just don't hurt them. Sarah's eyes widened. He was giving up everything. His entire world for her and Marco. Touching, Victorio sneered. But I think we both know I can't let you live, Santoro. You just rebuild, come after me. No, you have to die, but first you'll watch me take everything. He pulled a gun, pressing it to Sarah's temple, starting with her. Everything happened in slow motion. Sarah saw Dominic move impossibly fast. His hand went to his ankle, came up with a weapon. At the same moment, Sarah did the only thing she could think of. She bit down hard on Victorio's wrist, making him jerk the gun away from her head. The shot went wide, glass shattered. Then the world exploded into chaos. Doors burst open. Dominic's men poured in. They'd been there all along, hidden, waiting. But Dominic himself was already inside, moving like death incarnate. Victorio grabbed for Sarah again, but she swung Marco's bassinet at his knee. The baby was still safely in her arms, and the old man stumbled. It was all the opening Dominic needed. You touched what's mine, Dominic snarled. His fist connected with Victorio's jaw with a crack that echoed through the room. The fight was brutal but brief. Victorio was old, past his prime. Dominic was in his prime and fueled by fury. When it was over, Victorio was on his knees, bleeding, defeated. Kill me, he spat, end it. Dominic leveled his gun at the old man's head. Sarah saw his finger tighten on the trigger, saw the cold calculation in his eyes. This was the monster, the killer, the Don who'd built his empire on violence. Dominic, Sarah's voice cut through the haze, don't. He looked at her and Sarah saw him warring with himself, saw the darkness battling with the man she'd come to know. He tried to kill you, he put his hands on you, on my son. I know, Sarah walked closer, Marco sleeping in her arms. But if you kill him like this in cold blood while I watch, you'll lose yourself, and I need you. Marco needs you, not the Don, not the monster, we need the man. The silence stretched, then Dominic lowered his gun. Take him, he ordered his men. Turn him over to the families. Let them decide his fate for breaking the old laws by targeting a sacred woman. As Victorio was dragged away screaming threats, Dominic turned to Sarah. For a moment they just stared at each other. Then he crossed the distance in 2 strides, pulling her and Marco into his arms. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered into her hair. When I saw the safe room breached, when I couldn't find you, Sarah, I thought I'd lost you both. You found us, Sarah pulled back to look at his face. You gave up everything to save us. I'd give up everything 1,000 times over. None of it matters without you. The empire, the power, the name, it all means nothing if you're not here. The families won't accept that. You can't just walk away from being a Don. Watch me, his eyes blazed with determination. I'm done with this life, Sarah, done with violence and death and living in darkness. You made me want something more. Made me remember there's light in the world. But the Santoro family has a successor waiting. My cousin Marco, yes, I named my son after him, has been angling for the position for years. He can have it. I'm taking my son and the woman I love and I'm walking away. The woman you love. Did you think I'd give up my empire for just anyone? He kissed her softly. I love you, Sarah Mitchell. I loved you when you offered to feed my son. Loved you when you stood in my world and refused to break. Love you now, standing here still protecting my child. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. This is crazy. Probably. I've known you a week. Best week of my life. Your world almost got us killed. I'm leaving that world for you, for Marco. He kissed her again deeper. Say you'll stay not for 3 days. Forever be my wife, Sarah, not because of traditions or sacred bonds, but because I love you and I hope you might love me too. Sarah looked at this beautiful, dangerous, impossible man, thought about her week in his world, thought about how alive she'd felt in his arms, thought about Marco sleeping peacefully against her chest, this child who'd healed something broken in her heart. I do love you, God help me, I do. Then say yes. Yes. In the aftermath of the attack, Sarah and Damanuk sat in what remained of Vakhtara's study. Marco slept between them, finally at peace. Glass crunched under their feet, and somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Teresa, Sarah asked quietly, already knowing. Damanuk's jaw tightened. She saved you, bought you time to escape, she knew what she was doing. She told me her husband died for this life, that it was worth it. It wasn't worth her death, pain cracked through his voice. None of this is worth losing the people we love. Sarah reached for his hand. His fingers closed around hers, holding tight like she might disappear. I've been thinking, Damanuk said after a long moment, about what comes next. I meant what I said about walking away. Can you really do that, just leave? My cousin has wanted this position for years. He's capable, connected, respected by the other families. The transition will be smooth. He turned to face her fully. Sarah, I'm 42 years old. I've spent half my life building an empire I didn't choose. My grandfather handed it to me when I was 21, fresh out of college, and said, "This is your legacy." I never questioned it, until now. What changed? You, Marco, he stroked the baby's head gently. Isabella and I, we had an arrangement more than a marriage, respect, partnership, but not love, not really. She knew what my life was, accepted it. But you walked into my world by accident and showed me what I was missing. What I could have if I was brave enough to reach for it. Where would we go? Anywhere, somewhere quiet. Somewhere Marco can grow up without guards, without looking over his shoulder. Montana, maybe, or Oregon, wide open spaces where a kid can run without hitting a fence. Sarah smiled despite everything. You, a rancher. Why not? I can learn. His expression softened. I can learn to be something other than what I was raised to be if you'll teach me. I'm not exactly an expert at normal life either. Then we'll figure it out together. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. Say you'll stay, Sarah, not for 3 days, not for a week. Forever be my wife. Help me raise Marco. Help me build a life that's worth living, not just surviving. Sarah thought about Emma, about how grief had frozen her in place for 6 months. Thought about how Marco had thawed that ice, given her a reason to feel again. Thought about Damanuk, who'd somehow become her anchor in the storm. What if I'm not ready, she whispered. What if I can't be what you need? You're already what I need. You're already Marco's mother in every way that matters. He cupped her face. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be mine, to take this leap with me. People will say we're crazy, that it's too fast. Let them talk, we know the truths. Sarah looked down at Marco, then back at Damanuk. She thought about all the reasons to say no, the speed of it, the danger they'd faced, the impossibility of it all. But then she thought about how her heart had shattered when Emma died, and how these two had somehow pieced it back together. Yes, she said, I'll marry you, I'll stay, I'll build this crazy, impossible life with you. Damanuk's smile was brilliant, transforming his face. He kissed her then, deep and claiming, while Marco slept peacefully between them. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. We leave in 3 days. I need that long to finalize the transition, make sure everything's secure. Can you wait 3 more days? I've waited 6 months to feel alive again. 3 more days is nothing. Pack light, we're starting fresh. New names if you want, new identities, a clean break. What about your family? Lucca's coming with us. He's been with me since we were kids. He's family. And whoever else wants out, there are always a few who want to leave this life. We'll take them if they're willing. Sarah nodded, then asked the question that had been nagging at her. The families, will they really let you go? They'll have to. What you did, nursing Marco, risking yourself for him, that earned respect. You're sacred to them now, whether you believe it or not. They won't move against us. And if they do, then I'll protect you. But Sarah, I don't think they will. The old families, they understand love, they understand sacrifice. What we have, what you've given us, they'll honor that. As dawn broke over Vakhtara's estate, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Sarah, Damanuk and Marco sat together in the ruins. They were bruised, exhausted, traumatized, but they were together. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't look dark. It looked like possibility, like hope, like a family choosing each other against all odds. 3 days, Sarah said, and then we start over. 3 days, Damanuk agreed, and then the rest of our lives. 6 months later, Sarah stood in a small church in Montana, wearing a simple white dress. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, painting rainbow patterns on worn wooden pews. Marco, now chubby and healthy, babbled happily in Tarasa's arms in the front row, not the Tarasa who died for them, but her younger sister Maria who'd chosen to follow them into this new life. Nervous, Damanuk asked, looking devastating in a dark suit, his hand warm in hers. Terrified, Sarah admitted, but in a good way. The wedding was small, just Lucca, Maria, and a handful of others who'd followed Damanuk into his new life. Sarah's parents were there too, cautiously accepting of their daughter's whirlwind romance with the reformed businessman who'd swept her off their feet. They didn't know the whole truth, didn't need to. The vows were simple, no mention of dons or empires or sacred traditions, just two people promising to love each other through whatever came next. When Damanuk kissed her, Sarah felt complete for the first time since losing Emma. This was her family now, her impossible, beautiful, miraculous family. The reception was held at their new home, a ranch house on 50 acres of Montana wilderness, far from New York and the life Damanuk had left behind. String lights crisscrossed the backyard, and a local band played soft country music as the sun set behind the mountains. As they danced under those lights, Marco sleeping peacefully inside, Sarah marveled at how much had changed. "Any regrets?" she asked against Damanuk's chest. "Not one," he pulled back to look at her, "though I should warn you, Lucca got a concerning call today." Sarah's stomach dropped. The family's found us. Damanuk's jaw tightened. "Nothing threatening, just checking in, making sure we're really out, and are we?" "We are," he kissed her forehead. "I made my position clear, I'm done. The Suntra family belongs to my cousin now. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with the Council of Families, who officially sanctioned my retirement." "Because of me," Sarah understood, "because I'm sacred to them. Because you saved the Suntra heir when no one else could, because you proved that love is stronger than power." Damanuk smiled. "The old families respect that, they won't touch us." As if on cue, headlights appeared at the end of their long driveway. Sarah tensed, but Damanuk squeezed her hand reassuringly. "It's okay." A single car pulled up, and a man in his 60s stepped out, well-dressed, carrying himself with authority. "Don Calabrese," Damanuk greeted him with careful respect. "This is unexpected." "Relax, Suntra," the older man smiled warmly. "I come as a friend, not a threat." The families wanted someone to deliver this officially. He handed Dominic an envelope sealed with wax. Dominic opened it, Sarah reading over his shoulder. It was a formal document releasing Dominic from all obligations to the Santoro family and the wider organization, signed by all 5 family heads. "Thank you," Dominic said quietly. "Don't thank me, thank your wife." Don Calabrese nodded to Sarah. "What she did for your son, that kind of love, that kind of sacrifice, it reminded us all why we have these traditions, why we protect women and children above all else. She earned your freedom, Santoro, both of yours." He tipped his hat and left as quickly as he'd arrived. Sarah and Dominic stood in the driveway long after the taillights disappeared, the document still clutched in his hand. "It's really over," Sarah whispered. "It's really over." Dominic pulled her close. "New life, new beginning, just us and Marco." "And Marco," Sarah agreed, smiling. "And maybe someday a little brother or sister for him." Sarah's hand went to her stomach where their secret was still too new to be visible. "Maybe sooner than you think." Dominic's eyes widened. "Are you?" 3 weeks along, I wanted to tell you after the wedding." She bit her lip nervously. "Is that okay?" His answer was to sweep her into his arms and spin her around, laughing with pure joy. When he set her down, both of them were crying happy tears. "More than okay, Sarah, you've given me everything. A reason to live, a reason to love, a future worth having." "You gave me that too," she said softly. "You and Marco, you saved me when I thought I couldn't be saved." They stood in the Montana darkness, stars brilliant overhead, with their past behind them and their future stretching ahead bright and full of possibility. Inside, Marco let out a small cry. They broke apart with matching smiles. Parents now, partners, lovers, friends. "He's hungry," Sarah said. "Then let's go feed our son." Dominic took her hand, together the way it should be. As they walked inside, Sarah looked back once at the driveway where the dawn had delivered their freedom. At the dark trees beyond that hid nothing more dangerous than wildlife. At the stars that witnessed their happy ending. She'd walked into a storm 6 months ago on that airplane. She'd found the most dangerous man in America and fed his child. And somehow, impossibly, miraculously, she'd found her home. Not in a place, but in a person. In a man who'd given up an empire for love. In a baby who'd needed her as much as she'd needed him. In a family built not on blood or tradition, but on choice. Sarah Mitchell had finally found where she belonged. And she was never letting go. The Montana sun was setting when the car appeared again, 3 weeks after the wedding. Sarah was in the garden with Marco, teaching him to touch the soft petals of wildflowers, when she heard the engine. Her body tensed instinctively. Dominic was in the barn with Luca, checking on the horses they'd just acquired. They were trying to build a real ranch, learning as they went. The car stopped. Don Calabrese stepped out again, and this time he wasn't alone. 2 other men emerged, both wearing suits despite the rural setting. Sarah's heart hammered. She scooped Marco up and started toward the house, but Calabrese called out. "Mrs. Santoro, please, we mean no harm." Dominic appeared from the barn, moving fast. Luca was right behind him, hand near his concealed weapon. They'd promised to leave that life, but some instincts died hard. "Don Calabrese," Dominic's voice was careful, controlled. "I thought we had an understanding." "We do, I bring good news." The older man gestured to his companions. "Representatives from the Eastern families, we wanted to deliver this in person." He held out another envelope, this one sealed with 5 different wax seals. Dominic took it slowly, opening it while Sarah moved to his side. Marco reached for his father, and Dominic took him automatically, holding him close while he read. Sarah read over his shoulder. The document was formal, written in both English and Italian. "By unanimous decision of the 5 families, Dominic Santoro is hereby granted full release from all obligations, past, present, and future. His retirement is recognized and sanctioned. No family shall move against him, his wife, or his children. This protection extends to their bloodline in perpetuity. Furthermore, Sarah Mitchell Santoro is recognized as having fulfilled the sacred tradition of wet nurse to the Santoro heir. Her courage and sacrifice are honored by all families. She and her descendants are under the protection of the 5 families. Signed this day." All 5 family heads had signed it. This wasn't just permission to leave. This was an ironclad guarantee of safety, recognized by every organization on the East Coast. "Your wife earned this," Don Calabrese said. "What she did, feeding your son when he was dying, protecting him during the attack, showing mercy when vengeance would have been easier, that reminded us what these traditions are really about. Not power, not territory. Family, love, sacrifice." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. She'd walked into that world accidentally, terrified every step of the way. But somehow, her love for Marco had earned respect from men who dealt in violence and power. "Thank you," Dominic said, his voice rough. "This means more than you know." "We know," Calabrese smiled. "We've all had families, Santoro. We understand what you gave up to protect yours. That takes courage. Real courage, not the kind that comes from a gun." The other men nodded their agreement. "One more thing." Calabrese pulled out a smaller envelope. "From your cousin Marco. He wanted you to know the family is thriving under his leadership. And he's grateful you gave him the chance to prove himself." Dominic took that envelope too, tucking it away to read later. After the men left, Sarah and Dominic stood in their driveway, holding Marco between them. The baby babbled happily, reaching for his mother's hair. "We're really free," Sarah whispered, "truly free." "We are," Dominic kissed her forehead, then her lips. No looking back, only forward. Sarah took a breath, then decided it was time. "I have something to tell you." "You're pregnant," he said, grinning. "I know." "How? You've been tired, not eating your coffee, and this morning you got sick." His smile widened. "I've done this before, remember, I know the signs." Sarah laughed, the sound light and free. "I wanted it to be a surprise." "It is the best kind." He set Marco down in the grass, then pulled Sarah into his arms, spinning her around just like he had at the wedding. When he set her down, they were both dizzy and laughing. Marco squealed with delight, and they collapsed in the grass beside him, the three of them tangled together under the vast Montana sky. Boy or girl? Dominic asked, stroking her still flat stomach. Too early to know, does it matter? Not even a little, he kissed her again, as long as they're healthy and ours. They will be, we'll make sure of it. Sarah looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the twilight sky. 6 months ago, she'd been a broken woman on a plane, running from her grief. Now she was lying in the grass with a man who'd given up everything for her, with a baby who'd stolen her heart, and another child growing inside her. I love you, she said, not for the first time but with no less intensity. I love this life, I love our family. I love you too. Dominic propped himself up on one elbow to look down at her. You saved us, Sarah, not just Marco, me too. I was dying inside that world, becoming something I didn't recognize. You reminded me what it means to be human. Marco chose that moment to crawl onto Dominic's back, giggling. Sarah's heart swelled watching them, her boys, her family. Come on, Dominic said, standing with Marco in his arms. Let's go inside. We'll make dinner, give this one a bath, put him to bed. Normal things, beautiful things. Sarah took his offered hand and let him pull her up. Normal sounds perfect. As they walked toward their home, their real home, the one they'd chosen, Sarah thought about Emma. The grief would always be there, a scar on her heart, but it wasn't the open wound it had been. Emma had taught her how to love fiercely. Marco was teaching her how to love again. And the baby growing inside her was proof that life continued, that joy could return, that broken things could heal. She'd walked into a storm on that airplane. And she'd found her way home. Not to a place, but to a family. To love. To the messy, beautiful, impossible reality of building a life with someone who'd crossed darkness to find light. Sarah Mitchell Santoro had finally found where she belonged. And it was exactly where she was meant to be all along.